Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey guys, John Davis here. We are so excited to have you today. I am a numbers kind of guy. I like to look at the bottom line, make sure it's right where it's supposed to be. And I find that in my life, numbers have been a unique experience because of my good friend, Allison Baughman, who's here today as our guest. And she has, when she's done her numerology readings for me, she has literally been able to peg very specific points in my life. Actually, for those of you who know I'm nicknamed Triple X, she actually is able to tell me exactly when those three things happened in my numbers, which I thought was really kind of interesting. But so before we bring Allison in, let's introduce my co-host in crime, the lovely Tamara Zoner. How are you today, Tamara?
I'm fine, John. How are you?
I am doing well. Have you had experience with numerology?
No, but I have always been interested. I've done like a couple of those free reports, just to see. But no, I'm very excited to hear more about it today.
Well, Allison is the best. Allison is absolutely the best, and I think that you're going to find that she's not only the best in numerology, but she's the best in just being fully herself, authentically. And that's one of the greatest things about Allison, in my opinion. So, hello, Allison, and welcome today.
Hi, John. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, I think we're very excited to get into this topic about numerology and what's your spiritual journey, how you came to that place. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to that place?
Oh, well, as strange as this might seem, my mother was a teacher. So, I learned to love books at a very early age. And when I got old enough, when they cut me loose and I could go to the library by myself, I used to go to the library and my favorite books were biographies on the story of people's lives. So I read dozens, as many as I could find. I was fascinated. And I guess I was questioning, even as a young child, how do you get from being born to your destiny? So in one of those travels to the library, I found a book on numerology and brought it home. And I could remember bugging my mom to get the dates of birth of all my brothers and sisters so I could look them all up. And now I would like to say that I was a child prodigy and became this great numerologist at age 11, but that wasn't the case because there really wasn't much support at that time for that sort of a thing. So I was just kind of a closet numbers person. And I studied spirituality even when I was young. So when I got older, numerology was a thing for me, but I never really imagined doing readings or making it a professional sort of a thing. And one day I was going to go on this spiritual cruise as one of the participants. And the lady, Michelle, asked me, what my interests were. And I said numerology. And she says, hey, would you do a reading for me? And I said, well, sure. So I did a reading for her. Next thing you know, I was doing a reading for someone else. And the next thing I know, she invited me to come on the cruise, not as a participant, just a regular people, but coming on as the numerologist. So that was my first venture into it. And when I got back, I just prayed to God. And, I said, if this is what you want me to do, if this is where I'm supposed to go, then open doors. And I promise I'll go through them. And ever since then, the doors were just wide open. I just had so many wonderful opportunities. And so 21 years later, it's been a good journey. So,
Wow. You don't go halfway, do you? You go all the way right away.
Well, I mean, it just seemed odd to me that I would discover numerology as a child, that I loved biographies. And then somehow I ended up, this is what I did for a living. So.
Right. So what you say you were drawn to numerology. What is your belief about numbers and spirituality? How do they interact?
Well, what's interesting to me is I had a ton of experience with numerology, working with clients and hearing the stories of their lives and seeing how accurate numerology was. And almost simultaneously, as I really got into doing the readings, I really started to get into much deeper spiritual philosophy. And what I found is everything that I read spiritually corresponded to numerology. Numerology is the testimony of everything that's spiritual. It is that we come in, we choose our soul experiences. We're here to evolve, that God loves us, that he's not trying to punish us. All these things that, all the things that spiritual philosophy teaches, numerology demonstrates. And even the wording of psychics and mediums and meditation and clairvoyance and clairaudience and healers, all of that wording is in numerology, the books, all of the books. It's there, it's in the wording, So for me, I was using a tool that really validated anything you ever want to learn spiritually, even manifestation, all of those things. It's really kind of written into the numbers. So, I mean, that's what I've learned. It validated everything.
Right. Go ahead, Tamara.
Well, I'm curious because not too long ago, John and I had a conversation on this podcast about destiny and fate. And so I'm curious, I totally agree with the idea that our souls make a sort of agreement as we come into this life, what we want to learn, what good we want to do, what our mission is. And I believe there's like some flex room there, right? So right. How does that work? How does that work together? If the numbers kind of outline a path, like John was saying when you did his reading, that you were able to pinpoint parts of his life, but how do they work toward the future? I'm curious.
Well, okay, that's kind of a complex sort of thing, destiny and fate, but I really believe that we all have a destiny and we all have a plan, and we've all planned these experiences to go through. And you might have an experience when you were, let's say, 11 or 20, and that experience is a part of something that's going to help you decide something 10 years in the future. You see what I'm saying? So every person that we meet, every experience that we have, to me, I like to think of it as we're always in apprenticeship for our destiny, each and every day. Every experience, every person that we meet, everything that we do, we're in apprenticeship for what we're here to do, right? One of the most fascinating things about numerology is what John is talking about, is being able to go back and start at the beginning when you were born and wade through someone's life and talk about the energy that comes in on a yearly basis and see what that energy creates. Okay, that energy creates your experiences. And so because I have a really strong, not only the experience of thousands and thousands of readings, but I also have the experience of understanding the numbers. And so I was able to look at John's chart as I'm walking him through the life and identify specific times in his life where I knew something major had happened in his life. And this can be done for anyone's chart. You literally can see when people marry. You can see when people experience a loss. You can see where there's financial hardships. You can see even when someone cheats on someone. You could see people's sexual orientation in charts. Okay, I mean, it's all there. And so, if we begin to understand, when we truly understand our numerology chart, and we understand energy is always in an ebb and a flow. It's coming into our life. It's moving. Something else is coming in. If we learn how to use that to our advantage, to use that energy in a positive way, we can more or less attain our best self and certainly attain, the most success. Okay. But I am a true believer that if you're destined to be a millionaire, you'll be a millionaire. And if you're not going to be. Okay. I mean, I think, and really, in all honesty, that's why CEOs grow up to be CEOs. It's because of their energy. It's something they desire. It's something they manifest. The same way that a mother grows up to have children. It's what she manifested, the desire to be a mother. We all have this energy that is the catalyst for how we create our lives. So I don't know if that answers your question or makes any sense, but there you go.
Yes, it answers some questions and makes more. But
go ahead, go for it.
Well, so is it predictive? So
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So the question I have, Allison, right now there's all these repeating numbers, 1111, 444, blah, 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 right? does that what is that about? Or does that even tie in with what you do?
Sure. Well, we talk about the universal language.
Mm-hmm.
So if God was wanting to communicate to everyone on this planet, every human being, the one language that is universal is numbers. Doesn't matter what language you speak, you understand numbers. They all mean the same thing. So numbers is a universal language. And we tend to think of numbers in terms of mathematics, adding, subtracting, and calculations and whatnot. But each number has a specific characteristic, meaning. It also is an action. Really, when you look at numerology and you understand a number, not only does it tell you what it's all about, but it tells you how to use it and how to use it effectively. Okay. So numbers are a universal language that I really believe that's why we have numerology. It gives us the ability to understand our soul plan. It is written into the numbers. It's written into, and people often only have an understanding of what their life path number means. But if you truly understood the complexity of a numerology chart, it goes way beyond your life path. Right. You have things that are called transits and essences and personal years and pentacles, all these things that when you put them all together, they're telling a story. So right. You can either just color with one crayon out of the box, or if you really understand numerology, now you're using the full spectrum and you can paint a much more detailed picture of someone's life. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, it does. I guess the question that it leads me to is this, though, is when someone starts to become very aware of numbers.
Oh, the 11s, the 22s. Okay.
Yeah. Is that because they are?
No, God is talking to you.
Right. Okay.
Is what that's all about.
To give you an example, for the last 3 months, I have been seeing the same two numbers over and over and over again. I've been seeing 1212 and 1222, like crazy. Like okay. I wake up in the middle of the night and it's 1222, or I look at the microwave and it's 1212.
Sure.
So what would, as a numerologist, what would you say that meaning would be?
Well,
if you want to share, that's fine.
Sure. No. Let's see. Let me just look at it. Like I was trying to dissect your name here first and foremost, but let me just go back before we get to the 1212, and I'm going to write it down so I don't forget.
Okay.
But when I started as saying that numbers are the universal means of communication from the divine, they speak to us through numbers. Mm-hmm. And that's what the phenomenon is with people seeing repetitive numbers. That's somebody trying to get your attention. Okay. Whether, you could call it God himself, you could call it your spirit guides, you could call it even, your loved ones that have crossed overs. Anyone's trying to get your attention. Okay. Now, if you're seeing a specific number, some of the things you might want to ask yourself is, does that have any meaning to me in my life? Like, is it at someone's birthday? Or is it a day that someone crossed over? You might want to check dates and see. And then you might be able to correlate that to a specific person that has crossed over that maybe is sending you a message. I do believe that when we started to see the 11s, they usually progress to 222s and 333s and whatnot. And I believe that could potentially be like what you would call something that is like giving your soul, a push to grow. You know what I'm saying? Something that is a catalyst for your growth. It's like a code that right. kind of helps you to continue your journey. So usually people, when they start their spiritual journey, they see these numbers start off as 1111, and then ultimately they begin to change. I will tell you one really quick story about numbers. I'm a numerologist, and you would think that I would have caught on to this long ago, but I was seeing 717 all the time. And it took me a while to understand. Now, first I thought, well, that's really weird, because I moved to a 717 area code. And once I moved there, that's when I became a professional numerologist. Is that it? Then I got to thinking that my one daughter was born exactly at 717 at night. I thought, there's another 717. Then I was thinking all three of my children were born on 7 days. Isn't that unusual? Then one day I was looking at my name and I realized Allison, my first name is a 7. My middle name is Marie, and that's a 1. And my last name, maiden name, was Foot, and that's a 7. 717. And then I went, oh my God, they're calling my name.
Oh, wow.
So they probably were up there going, what a dumb numerologist we have there. It took us so long to figure out we're calling her name, but they were calling my name. And what I found out by paying attention to the 717 is whenever I was anxious, whenever I was worried, and God knows I could obsess about things, right? So whenever I was worried about something, I would get the 717 either on the car in front of me, on a receipt. I would wake up or go to sleep, or I would check the time and it'd be 717. It was like this comforting message to me that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, Allison. Just chill, just relax. And I always just trusted it, right? I just trusted that number, that was my number. So if you're getting the 1212, okay, then what I would suggest to you is think back. Where does this come in with anybody's birthdays or with anybody that you know?
I can't think of anybody that's even born in December.
I mean, you can think of one person.
Are you born in December? Tamara, what's your birthday?
December 30th.
And you're young enough. You could have been born in 2012.
Well, my kids are older than that.
Well, I wouldn't really look at it as 2012. I would just look at it as a series of numbers. What was it? You get 2222 as well?
I get 1222 and 1212 all the time.
Because it's a 6 and it's a 7. I would just pay attention to the 1s and the 2s. 1s meaning two new beginnings or new opportunities or moving forward. But I would also look at the 2 as telling me to be patient, maybe allow things to unfold, or to see, maybe your success is going to come through your associations with other people, like someone you know or someone you help. They're going to come in and help you. But I would say there's a new opportunity, but there's also like, wait, be patient. It's gonna happen. I don't know if that makes sense.
I hear all the time that the world does not work at the speed of John. I want things too quickly. But that's just the way I am.
But there is an article, just so you know, there is an article on my website that anyone can refer to that goes into the numbers. It's an article on that specific thing. And it also gives the meanings of the numbers. So if you're getting specific numbers, you can actually look up those numbers and look them up individually. And more often than not, it makes more sense to you than it does to me, because you know what's going on in your life. So,
right. Well, and to give an example of that for the listeners, many years ago, I was having some very big spiritual experiences based around a past life that I had. And I was reading a book called The Messengers about a guy named Nick Bunick. And he kept waking up at 4:44. And when he'd wake up at 4:44, he'd get up and he would suddenly sit down and write down like pages of messages. And I started seeing that 4:44 everywhere I went. And when I finally met Nick, I was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I went to a metaphysical conference. And I arrived to the center of the convention hall, and I parked on the 4th level, the 4th row in the 4th space. And then I got out and went over to the convention center. And as I walked up to the door, a taxi pulled up in front of us, and the phone number was 444-4444. Right. And then I go in and I meet Nick, and it was like very, very interesting. And that 444 has followed me. That's just like a constant for me now. But the 1212 was something very different and new. Tamara, have you ever had any of these number of things?
Yeah, actually, as you were both talking, I was thinking, every time not every time, but often enough that it's memorable, that I'm seeking confirmation, am I on the right path? Am I making the right choice? All of a sudden, I'll start looking at the clock at 11:11, 1:11, 2:22, 3:33. And by the 3rd or 4th time, I'm like, okay, I get it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Usually it's an encouragement of some sort. It's look at it as being a positive thing. Yeah.
Well, I look at any communication like that as a positive. To me, it excites me every time it happens, but sometimes it's so it's so blatant. I remember back in the early days, the 444 days, I walked into a Best Buy and walked past the appliance section at noon, and every microwave and every oven and every piece of appliance was blinking 444.
Oh my God.
And I was like, that's just insane,
Wow.
So yeah,
that's cool though.
I think, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Because this is
no, you, Tamara. I was talking to you. Good.
Okay, so for novice people who know very little about numerology, like, where do you start? So I'm hearing that you use the name and the names translate into numbers. And then is it like, horoscopes where you use birth dates or time of birth? So tell me, how do you like initially read someone's chart?
Well, with astrology, you're going to use the day of birth and the time of birth, and that's what's important. In numerology, you use the name that is on your birth certificate or the name you were given at birth in your date of birth. We don't use time or where you were born. We just use those two items. So it's interesting that the day you were born, gives you a set of calculations and gives you a certain amount of information. And then the name fills in the rest of the picture. So, that's where you start, is those two items are kind of necessary in order to, like, I just got an email from a girl that she wants a reading, and she was born just at the moment where daylight savings time kicked in, right? So was she born on the 4th or the 5th? It's like we changed that hour, So for me, the best way to determine that for her is to actually speak to her. And all I got to do is ask her 3 or 4 questions, and then I'll know which one is correct, because, what her vibe is, you could pretty much tell. I mean, I'm at the point that when I meet someone, within probably a few minutes, I can tell you at least 2 of their numbers. I can tell by either how you're dressed, your mannerism, how you speak. It's pretty easy for me to see that energy in people. And I think that I'm a really great observer as well. So, it's always fun for me. That's like a little game I play, actually.
Ooh, so play it. Would you play it with us? I mean,
Would I play with it?
But we just met.
Well, the thing about you is I do see someone that's very attractive. He's got a beautiful smile. So I would really strongly guess that you have 3 energies somewhere in your chart. And like I say, unless we can break your whole chart down, it'd be hard for me to, for you to validate that.
Except for that is one of my favorite numbers. And
yeah, because I just see a lot of 3 energy with you, because you just got this fabulous smile. And I don't know how old you are, but I'm guessing you look younger than you actually are. So that's where the 3 comes in too with you. John, I already know his stuff. So, well, the nice thing about John is I love John. As I said, going back, because, for me to understand psychic energy and what that is, it was always a problem for me, because I was kind of a psychic child, right? So it was very nice to be able to read about how the numbers represent psychic energy. Okay. Each number, some people are gifted, some people come in with a mother load of psychic energy. And some people, all of us do have psychic energy to a certain extent. So one of the things that I always allowed for my clients was giving them that safe space to talk about their experiences, because I'm open and I'm supportive, and I would actually bring it to their attention. Hey, do you ever have dreams that come true? Do you ever, see things, have you ever seen something paranormal? And so by giving my clients safe space to tell me their stories, I've just heard all these beautiful and wonderful stories from people of things that they've experienced that very much are reflected in the energy of the numbers. So, that's another aspect, I think. And it's also something that I studied. I mean, to be honest, I studied, did a lot of research on the people that are in the paranormal fields out there and what got them started. And quite honestly, it's in their energy. They had the experience which wigged them out. So now they're paranormal explorers, because, their numbers actually created those, they had those experiences. So, there's so many different ways you could look at numerology, and so much you can learn, if you really understand.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about when you did the reading for me was the sense that it was more than just the numbers, because you are an intuitive. You do read more than just numbers. I mean, I remember several times you actually said, I'm getting this, and this is how I feel about it, as opposed to. So is that a big part of what you do?
Well, all right, let's put it this way. I think that I have an extraordinary understanding of numerology that goes beyond anything I can explain. I just do. And so, and that is all intellectual, that is all knowledge, that is from study. It's also, from observation, it's from seeing certain numbers create certain experiences. It happens over and over time. You put that in your head somewhere. So when you see that numbers in somebody's chart, you're actually recalling information and understanding that this potentially is what is happening. Okay, so part of it's intellectual, but I'm also very much an intuitive. So I have the ability when I'm reading for people, I don't really like to read for people seeing their face. Okay. I much prefer reading over the phone where I can't see them. And there's a reason for that, is because, oftentimes the faces, they make a face like, no, that's not right. But then 3 minutes later, they're like, oh, that's right. Okay. But getting back to it, when I read people just hearing their voices, it makes me have to tap into them and get into their energy. Okay. And when I get into their energy, number one, I'm able to deliver a reading in a way that is very profound for them. It's always fascinating to me that if I'm talking to someone that's super intellectual, all of a sudden I become 10 times smarter. If I'm talking to somebody that is very funny or jovial, all of a sudden I'm joking my way through a reading. So when I tap into their energy, it's almost like I get into it, I start feeling it, and then I'm able to deliver that reading in a very profound way that has a strong effect on that person, so that they're going to walk away from that being changed by the reading, or being at least being somewhat enlightened by the reading. I do get hits during the reading that are 100% psychic. Like, to give you an example, one time I was talking about a 3 life path, and I says, it's almost like the sun, always around you, the song "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow" is singing, or "You Are My Sunshine" is just, it's just ringing in the background. And this girl all of a sudden stopped what she was doing, and she says, oh my God, my mother, who passed away 3 years ago, my mother always sang those songs to me and told me those were my songs. Now, in all my lifetime of doing readings for 3 life paths, I've never brought that into a reading, but all of a sudden I had no idea why I was saying it. I just was. But it was very meaningful for this particular person. So apparently her mother was hanging out somewhere wanting to send a little message to her daughter. So I've come to understand that although I would never say that I was a psychic, and I would never say that I was a medium, I certainly have those capabilities.
Right.
I'm probably a much better numerologist than
Well, that's specifically why I use the word intuitive.
Yeah.
Your intuition sees the numbers, and then you get the feeling, and you just have an intuition about it. Because I know you at one point during the first reading you did for me, I think you did 2 for me. During the first one, you literally said something like, your numbers say this, but I'm feeling this. And it was kind of like a different direction than what the numbers were saying, but down the same vein, but in a kind of a different skew on it. And
Yeah.
to me, that was very much, Allison tapping into her own, Akashic record string, so she could get her own stuff. So
Yeah.
I find that really interesting.
And Tamara, I just want you to know that I'm not going to leave you hanging. You have an open invitation to email me from my website, and I will hook you up. Okay. So
Thank you.
Tamara, I would highly recommend it, because it's really a great experience. And I would say that for anybody who's listening too. If you really want a great experience and learn about who you are on a deeper level, then I would definitely get a hold of Allison. So where does Visible by Numbers go from here?
well, one of the things that, like, I took some time off for a while. I think after doing it for 20 years, I was a little bit fried. So I took some time off and fed the squirrels, and just kind of
good for you.
Tried to see what it felt like not to have a schedule, because my schedule got to the point where, and I'm a nice person, I have a hard time telling people no. And so I was working the weekends, I was working the weeks, and I was just burnt out. So I took some time off. I'm back part-time. But my major focus is, I don't want to go to my grave without putting the next book out there. And really, that's the one I think that will bring some understanding, a greater understanding of numerology to people. It will be the book that I wish I could have read when I was studying it when I was younger. It was the book that was missing. And so I want to make sure I get that done. And once I get that done, you know, I'll worry about what to do next after that. So that's where I'm at.
It's really good that you're listening to yourself and about needing to take a break. You know, the year before COVID, I traveled over 200 days speaking.
Wow.
And I was burned out. I was way burned out. I was so happy for COVID. It's like I get to sit in my house and don't even have to put pants on if I don't want to, because I have a camera that only sees from here up. Right? So,
oh dear, now you've got us wondering.
You'll just have to visualize. Thank you very much.
Well.
But yeah, so I understand that taking your time. Now, the thing, Tamara, is one of the things that she does is she puts out meditations, and she is all about creating a life you love. And I know that she's all about self-care. And
absolutely.
So,
and that balance, actually, while you were talking about your next book, I heard Pleasure by Numbers, because it's so important to work pleasure. Like, you go feed the squirrels, that's something that's bringing you joy. It's not all work can bring us joy, but if we don't have what fuels our inner fire and lights us up and fills, John has heard this one a billion times, but if this cup empties, I've got nothing left to pour. But if I serve from the overflow, I'm never running out. And so COVID gave us all that opportunity to really connect, quiet, and calm our nervous systems and ourselves and our schedules, so that we could start fresh from a place that feels expansive and allowing us to have joy in our life, in addition and even before work. So yeah.
Right. It was about trying to find the time to just, where did I go in all of that, and it's like, as much as I wanted to, continue to help my clients, which, I had but there was more of them than there was me, and it was just getting to be a lot. Yeah. So, as my schedule is starting to fill back up, I'm just, I have to talk to the gods that be and say, okay, guys, this is where you've got to make sure I don't make the same mistakes again that I made before, which is just taking on too much. So,
right.
So,
I totally get that.
Well, we're all giving humans, and so we want to serve, but we have to remember that we serve better when we serve ourselves first.
Right. I have to learn to say no, and it's a real hard thing for me to say no.
I'll share this one phrase with you that changed my life in that.
Okay, good. I need it.
Which is, I love you and I love me. Thank you for asking, and I have another commitment. Period.
Good one.
That is good.
I
just tell them to F off.
I don't believe that for
actually,
a minute.
I don't believe that for a minute.
Actually, I have a friend of mine who I love dearly, and the way he would have handled that situation is somebody would have asked, and he'd gone "Pah!" and walked away, right? And and they totally got the answer, and he never had to say no, right? But it was
right. But does that connect? Does that leave them both feeling good?
I'm not saying it was a good thing. I'm saying to me, I look at it, and I chuckle because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, because in this way, when we remember I love you and I love me, that it's that thank you so much for thinking of me. I appreciate being asked. And, I have another commitment, which is yourself.
Right.
And I love this because now my friends will respond to my invitations that way. And I just laugh because I see them holding healthy, loving boundaries for themselves.
Right.
And I'm a really fun person to hang out with. So I know it's hard for them to say no.
Right. It's hard to say no to you. Right.
Right. And so I just love and appreciate so much when I see them use that response, because I feel so loved when they tell me no.
Well, great. Part of my issue is I am older. Okay. And, 8:00 at night, I'm out for the count. I'm a night, I'm in la la land. I get up early and I go to bed early, and a lot of my clients are in time zones where I can't accommodate them being on Eastern, you know, and so they want me to read for them late at night. And I used to try to do it, you know, but I really felt in my heart of hearts, I wasn't giving them 100% of me because I was tired, you know. And so I finally realized it wasn't good for them and it wasn't good for me. So it's like, if you're in Pacific Standard Time, I guess you better get up early if you want a reading for me, because that's the way it's going to be, because I am not reading for people late at night.
And in that situation, it comes down to is when are your services available? They are available from this time to this time on Eastern Time.
Right.
You know,
whereas I used to accommodate, but I don't anymore.
And the right people will find the right times that are good.
If it's meant to be, it'll be.
Right. Exactly. When I started doing podcasts, my Interaction Hero podcast is the result of me first doing as many guest spots as I could. And from January till June, I did over 100 guest spots on podcasts, just because I really wanted that marketing and I really wanted to get that out there. And it was really interesting because I spoke on podcasts in Indonesia and Australia, and there were times I was at midnight doing podcasts because that's what I had to do. And it got to the point where I was just like, I only do it in Eastern Time now. You know, if you can't fit into my schedule, then I can't do it. Mm-hmm. And that burned me out pretty quickly too. So then I shifted to hosting, and it's interesting because my perspective on hosting was very different from guesting. As a guest, I would say, well, when are you available, or you know, what time do you record or whatever. As a host, I say, are you available at this day at this time, period. You know, or I'll give them a couple options: this day at this time, or this day at this time, and I don't give them any other options. You know, you can do that or not, and if you don't want to, if you can't do it, then we're not going to do it.
Well, why do you think I asked you what time? Because if you were going to have a late night podcast, I was going to have to say, I love you to death, Don, but I just can't. I just can't.
I love you and I love me, and I have to say
I love me, and I'm busy. I'm sleeping. Yeah.
No.
Every time I stayed up for a late night, like Coast to Coast was a midnight show, and I'd stay up for that. And then I was exhausted going into it. And then afterwards I couldn't sleep. Right. And then I didn't get enough sleep that night, and I was a total worthless the next day. So being on a show for 1 hour literally took away 24 hours out of my life because I was a mess. Right.
How many times did you do Coast to Coast?
I did it a couple times.
Yeah.
Predictions basically at the beginning of the year I was on for.
Oh, so. Great. That's great. Yeah, that's a pretty well-known show.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, not to mention. Yeah, I think part of the reason is you're all jacked up because you want to do a good job on the show. Then when it's done, you can't go to sleep. So it was just like
the adrenaline's up and running. I get it.
Well, for people who are in the right time zone, wanting the times that serve you both, how do they get a hold of you, and how do they initiate a reading?
Sure. Well, you know, if you go to my website, visiblebynumbers.com, or you can just Google my name and the website will come up. And I do readings on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays now. So that's my 3 days. Perfect. And I will accommodate you as best as I can. So if you're Pacific Standard Time, then let's look at Saturday for you, you know. But, you know, that's where you can, you know, look, there's 2 different types of readings. And more often than not, you know, if you need to customize your reading, and maybe if you're having relationship issues or financial issues or whatever, you know, you can customize, you can ask me anything you want during your reading, and based on the numbers, I'll give you an answer. So visiblebynumbers.com. It's that easy.
And I will make sure I put all that stuff in the show notes at the end of this. Well, Allison, this has been an incredible time. Thank you for coming on today.
Well, I missed you.
I miss you too.
And I'm so glad to meet you too, Tamara.
Nice to meet you too, Allison.
Yeah, I knew you two would like each other because you're
yeah, we like each other. We're good. We're like this now.
There you go. Yep. So Tamara, you want to take us out of this thing?
Sure thing. Thank you, John. Thank you, Allison, so much for being with us, and all of you listeners. We love and appreciate you so very much. As always, we love to hear your comments and feedback and questions, and hope that you'll reach out to Allison for guidance in your life by the numbers. So we will see you, hear you. Well, you'll hear us next week again. So tune in to Spirit Cafe and be who you are, because we love you the best that way. See you next time.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.